Welcome! Today, we are diving into the complex world of fatal offenses, with a specific focus on how murder is defined and prosecuted under Ghanaian law. Let's get started.
A fatal offense is simply a crime that results in the death of another person. Under the law, this broad category includes murder, manslaughter, genocide, infanticide, and abortion.
To convict someone of a fatal offense, the prosecution must prove two things. First, the actus reus, or the guilty act that caused the death. Second, the mens rea, which is the guilty mind or the intention behind the act.
This principle comes from a famous legal maxim stating that an act alone doesn't make a person guilty unless their mind is equally guilty. Both must happen at the same time for criminal liability to exist. Focusing specifically on Ghana, Section 47 of the Criminal Offences Act of 1960 defines murder clearly. It happens when someone intentionally causes the death of another person through unlawful harm. Breaking that definition down, we find four essential elements. A person must die, the death must result from unlawful harm, the accused must be the one who caused that harm, and they must have intended to kill. Let's look at the first element. A person dies. The law is very specific about when life begins for the purposes of murder. A child must be completely expelled from the mother's body alive to be considered a person.
Interestingly, the child doesn't even need to have taken a breath or had their umbilical cord cut. As long as the whole body is brought into the world alive, causing its death can be prosecuted as murder. On the flip side, when does someone stop being a person? The courts have ruled that a person ceases to be a person when brainstem death occurs. In cases like Malcherick and Steele, where victims were on life support with no brain function, doctors turning off the machines did not break the chain of causation. The original attackers were still guilty of murder. The final element, the intention to kill, is crucial. If harm is inflicted without the intent to kill, it is manslaughter, not murder. Courts look at the facts, like the weapon used or injury severity, to determine intent. Seriously, for example, if someone uses a lethal weapon like a loaded gun, the court infers that they knew death was the inevitable consequence of their actions, satisfying the requirement for intent. Historically, under Section 46 of Act 29, the punishment for murder in Ghana was death. However, Parliament recently voted to abolish the death penalty for murder, replacing it with life imprisonment. To wrap up, remember that murder requires both the unlawful act of causing death and the specific intention to kill. Thank you for joining this lecture on fatal offenses.